We would like to greet everyone here a very good afternoon. Hope you all had a good lunch, right? I'm Sumathi Balakrishnan from School of Computer Science and Engineering at Taylor's University, Malaysia. And this is a top private university in Malaysia and Southeast Asia with the latest QS World University Ranking 2021 with top #1. Okay, it's an honor to be moderating the third keynote session for the conference today. Okay, and it's also a blessing to be able to collaborate with Universitas Islam Indonesia during this pandemic period. Taylor's University surely look forward to having more collaborations in the future. Okay, just before I start, I'm just going to remind about the session's rules. Just a reminder, we will have a 50 minutes keynote speech followed by a 20 minutes Q&A, which is totaling 70 minutes session. And you may ask your question to the speaker. Feel free to ask using raise hand feature or post your questions in the chat room. We will attend to the questions after the keynote speech ends, right? So just wait until the speech. So before the presentation begin, let me introduce our honorable keynote speaker, Prof. Fathul Wahid from Universitas Islam Indonesia, and who will enrich our insights and knowledge about his session, Strengthening Information Technology Ecosystems in Higher Education, Lesson from the Field itself. Okay, hope Prof. Fathul Wahid is currently a professor at Department of Informatics of Universitas Islam Indonesia. He has been with Universitas Islam for more than 10 years. He is an alumni of University of Edgar from Norway, and he has numerous international publications and collaborations with other universities in his year of research. Prof as well has actively done research on information systems in Indonesian public health facilities. Okay, currently he has been active on research on information and communication technology for development, e-government projects, e-participation and enterprise system projects. Okay, so the topic for today is absolutely an important topic, especially during this trying pandemic period. Strengthening IT ecosystem through sufficient coordination mechanism among systems is inevitably an important aspect in many fields. Okay, most of us here come from higher education field, totally depend on the strength of information technology ecosystem too. Okay, the disconnection can surely cause us to suffer loss from many angles. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Prof. Fathul Wahid. Thank you, Prof. You can continue.
Thank you very much, Sumathi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to all of you. I hope you have okay. Okay, you can see the screen now. Okay, this is the topic of our discussion this afternoon, strengthening information technology ecosystem in higher education, lessons from the field. So today I would like to share some stories with you, what we have done in our university, Universitas Islam Indonesia, during the transition started from around 6 years ago, and the current situation today when the COVID-19 pandemic hit us. So I will divide the presentation into three subtopics. One, I would like to invite you to discuss the perspective that we are going to use in understanding the situation and analyzing the situation. And the second one is on cases. So I will bring two cases on the table to be discussed. One is from, I frame it from workaround to turnaround. And the second one is the response to the COVID-19 pandemics. And the last subsection will be on the lesson learned. So we do hope that this can be something that we can taken away. Yes, we can learn, and we can what call it contextualize in different setting. So this is the perspective. So this is a quote from Paul Feldman. The is that the current situation demand for different approach in managing the institution, higher education institution, and also to oversee the demand from our students. So we cannot neglect the current situation that the digital environment is already around us, and we have to creatively responding to it by several initiatives that I'm going to share with you. Oh, something wrong with my slide here. So this is the main point, that the student digital activities is changing. The way they find information, the way they collaborate with other friends, the way they what call it inform or disseminate their thought, the papers, the finding, and so on and so forth. And the attitude is mainly positive. So that's why. So I'm quite sure, I do believe that all of us will be easily agree that this good attitude, a positive attitude toward the digital activities should be responded seriously and creatively. Moving forward, so I would like to, it's one of my favorite approach here. I think a lot of us, most probably, in a lot of situations, has been taught to think deductively. We start from finding problem, and we will find a solution to that problem. That's deductive thinking. Nothing wrong with that. But by using only that way of thinking, will not equip us to move forward in a quick speed. We cannot make a giant leap, for example. So that's why we have to bring in another way of thinking. This is called inductive thinking. If deductive thinking started from problem, inductive thinking another way around. So they will see, they will scrutinize possibilities, chance, opportunities, potential that can be done on the install base. For example, we have, mobile phone, for example. By using inductive thinking approach, what we will say is that by using our mobile phone, what we can do. So we equip us with the solution, and we will seek problem to solve. Sometimes the problem is already now, but sometimes the problem is still in the future time. So we have to combine these two approach in our thinking. So this I think the perspective that I would like to use in framing the discussion today. So this is a short definition of IT ecosystem. So it is the network of organization that drive the delivery of information technology products and services. We can see here a network of organization. That means it has a large number of participants that depend on each other. And for the sake of simplicity, so I put this in this slide, 3 actors: consumers, producers, and influencers. The consumers are the end users of IT services, IT products within our organization. The producer is the technology or the IT vendors, both for product and service provision. And the influencer is the stakeholders who pay more attention, who would like to involve more, who have what call it positive attitude. Since the IT ecosystem in
Prof, you're muted suddenly.
I have a problem with the mute and unmute button here. So you hear now clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. By considering the importance of IT ecosystem, so in short, we can also redefine the role of CIO, Chief Information Officers. The role of the CIOs are not only leading IT department, but more importantly, by considering the IT ecosystem that connect a lot of different parties in one big package. So managing relationship between them, between actors, between infrastructure is very important. And this is something that all CIOs should pay attention to. Not only leading IT department, but also managing relationship. So that's the first case, from workaround to turnaround. Is the case, so workaround is something that we do to fix problem, but temporarily. For example, if you have hole in your teeth and you have headache because of that, and then you take paracetamol, for example. Paracetamol can relieve your headache, but in a short time, temporarily. But the real problem, the hole in your teeth, is not fixed yet. This is a workaround. So what we are going to discuss in this session is that how we can transform ourselves from seeing a problem and solving with temporary fix workaround to what I call turnaround. There's something more permanent, something maybe and on the great extent can be like revolutionary. It's turnaround. So how we move from workaround practices to turnaround initiative. That's the first case. I don't think that we need to discuss it a bit further about workaround, but I think we can understand workaround from various phrases here, like adaptation, improvisation, and because of this temporarily fix, it's just to overcome, bypass, minimize, and so on and so forth, but only in a short time. Not solving the real problem, but only the symptom. So of course, we can also extend our discussion by bringing in a lot of concepts here, like other phenomena, such as improvisation, temporality, temporal chemistry, and so on and so forth. Also perspective that we can use, and also challenges that we may find on the ground when we are practicing workaround in solving a problem. So this is the context. This Universitas Islam Indonesia is one of the largest private universities in Indonesia, in a developing country. And as a university from a developing country, some said that Indonesia is a developed country, but in general it is not. They have like a stigma that we are lagging behind our counterpart from developed countries. So we would like to challenge the stigma by sharing some stories of what we have done in the last few years. What the complexities we face in our university, Universitas Islam Indonesia. We have around 28,000 students and around 2,000 staff distributed geographically in 5 campuses. We have 48 study program and 8 faculties. But the faculties has situated academic policies that in some extent vary from one faculty to another. That will make the complexity even larger. Okay, this is one way of thinking that we use when we transforming ourselves from practicing workaround and embrace turnaround. We have problem on the ground in place. For example, outdated technologies, non-standardized infrastructure and services, unreliable internet connection, federated or segregated information systems, inflexible information system design, and unequal user experience. And if we put it in one package, that means that we will have endless headache. So we have problem every day, every morning, we face a similar problem from one day to another day. So we would like to stay away from this problem by changing our way in solving the problem. This is the example of workaround, for example. For example, if you see number 2, for example, developing temporarily painkiller solution. I said so. It's just to respond to urgent requirement changes that sometimes imposed by the national authorities. We have to comply with that. We have no other option. And in many cases, the time is not on our side. So that's why. So we might develop a temporary painkiller solution. The positive consequence, of course, is relieving pain, but temporarily. But then we have negative consequences, technical debt, that we have to pay, normally not in a short time, in a weekly basis or in monthly basis, sometimes it's in yearly basis. And the problem is still there. And we have to pay attention when the problem came up. It's just like a firefighting approach. So we are busy ourselves to put the fire off every now and then. This is one example. So you can also see another example on the slide, on the screen. There's another examples. But now I would like to focus on the lessons. So this, I myself prefer to call it not best practices, but this is translated ideas. So these ideas, and you can, if you agree, you can take it home and you can contextualize it into your setting. From workaround to turnaround to strengthen IT ecosystem. So the first one, confront brutal facts. This is something not always comfortable to face with, to cope with, but we have no option other than be honest to ourselves. We have intimate knowledge about our problem and limitation. What we have to be aware is that in many cases, we suffer from what I call denialism or denial syndrome. So we do not believe what is going on the ground, and we would like to stay away from the problem instead of facing it, and that only postpone the problem to be solved. So to be honest to ourselves is very important. So we have to face the brutal fact. What if is this? If needed, this is what we have done. What we did 5 or 4 years ago, we invited external auditors to get more objective and legitimate assessment to our infrastructure, to our practices. And this is very important for many reasons. One of them is to minimize bias in assessment and to reduce possible political conflicts between actors within our organization by inviting external auditor. We did it, and at the time, the audit was carried out by the external auditor for around 3 months. 3 months. At the end of the auditing period, we got like a comprehensive picture. What is going on? What were the problem? What possible solution that we can have? And we also had like insight how to move forward, starting from the result, the finding from the audit. The second lessons that I can offer, that we can discuss it further, is by involving all stakeholders. This is very important. I do understand that it's not easy, but we have to try our best to invite all stakeholders to be involved in the process. Because strengthening IT ecosystem is not what call it single fighter project. It's not the duty of Lone Ranger. It demands for collective awareness. So that's why involving all stakeholders from various levels, from top management to administrators on the ground, is very important. So by doing this, we would like to have like a common ground. And it's also important to ensure that the solution we are going to develop at the time, is relevant to our context. So this is the second lesson. The third lesson is by opening our mind to great ideas that coming from different fronts. So we need to think out of the box. There's something that we can easily say, but it will be challenging to be practiced. So that's why at that time, we came up with like a new approach that we have to approach the problem that we found in our university by tools, approach, method, model, and so on and so forth that were used in the industry. We have to see, we have to scan the latest technologies that were used by the industry at the time. For example, at the end, we did agree that we use microservices architecture, for example. We adopted a Scrum method in managing the development team. We did agree on the way we design the system. This is like a choices. If we would like to have like a problem that we experienced before, that present-oriented design is the easiest way to do. But we opt to choose future-proof design. And we realize that by choosing this approach, we may invest a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of resources in design stage. So that's why we agreed to start the development of integrated information system from scratch. So I will show you some of the screenshot to give illustration. This is the latest development that already go live in our system. We develop what we call UII gateway. There's a package that have a lot of modules. This is a separate modules actually in practice managed by microservices, but we put it in a package like integrated package, integrated information system. For example, we have like a setting here. We have like a, what call it, a diploma supplement. So I can also monitor the current situation during the admission period, the payment of the students, and so on and so forth. I can also monitor the, what call it, the schedule, and so on and so forth. And we can access it through a website, both in our desktop or through our mobile phone, for example. Anywhere, anytime. This is one of the screenshot of the one dashboard that I frequently visited during the admission time, which is around 8 months during 1 year. For example, this is the latest situation. So we offered 5,400 something seat position for a new student, but at the end we got more than that, 120%. So we have also able to see the distribution of the students throughout the country and also beyond, including the one from overseas. And this is another dashboard we can use to see the, what call it, the channel they were chosen by the prospective student. This is an example. And moving forward, this is the fourth lesson that I can share with you. Is something that maybe many of us consider it as normative, but in many cases on the ground, it's not always easy formulating strategies, because these strategies are very contextual. So I think we cannot find one fit all strategy for different contexts. So the intimate knowledge about our context is very important. And by using this, we can come up with possible strategies that fit best with the context. So at the time we formulated 2 strategies. One is short-term, and the second one is the long-term strategies. The short-term strategies is very important to win the heart of the desperate users. Because at the time, every day, every morning, we got a complaint from user, especially on the quality of internet connection. So that's why, to be agile at the time, we did extreme reorganization. And again, the time was not on our side. So I think at the time we had only around 1 week given by director at the time, and we did it. And we also formulate a quick fix or quick win strategy. In the first year, we focus our energy to improve the quality of internet connection throughout the campus. And for the long-term one, so we would like to improve the whole system. So we introduce new philosophy in redefining our roles. So we agreed to define our role as a service provider, to serve, as a partner, to partner the top management. And if nothing happened, then we came up with the third option. We will act as a catalyst to accelerate the changes. We also introduce new, perspective. IT department at the time was seen as IT industry within a university. It's something different because we will manage it like an industry, and that will involve a lot of energy, so investment, top management support, and so on and so forth. And for long-term strategies, we also pay attention to infrastructure renewal and information system development. This is an illustration. So at the end of 2015 was the beginning of our digital transformation stage. At that time, we had only 500 megabit per second internet connection. And you will be surprised at the time because the consumption, even though we have only a limited internet bandwidth at the time, but the consumption indeed is very, very low. It's only 175 megabit per second. Then we realized there's something problem in the distribution channel. That's why we start from that situation, and we can see 1 year after, at the end of 2016, for example, you can see the difference. And this is the picture. You can see that the development is very clear. For example, at the end of 2018, for example, you see the internet bandwidth doubled. The consumption is more than double. But during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic that hit Indonesia at the beginning of March this year, we have to be creative in managing this internet bandwidth. So that's why we dismantle our engagement with some ISP, for example, because most of our students, if not all, are participating in the learning remotely, online, with online learning. And in this month, October 2020, for example, you can see the consumption of bandwidth reduced significantly. So this is the situation, but I would like to invite you to focus on this one before the pandemic. This is what's going on today. To respond to pandemics, we subscribe to Zoom services. We also subscribe to Panopto services, and adoption by the lecturers quite high. That make us happy, because we believe that we are in the correct track, and what we have to do in the next is by orchestrate this situation in a better way. So we also lay over a new backbone using fiber optics in our campus, for example. This is just an example how we formulate the strategies. And at that time, we agreed to install around 1,000 access points scattered in 5 campuses. And as you can see on screen before, that the consumption of bandwidth increased significantly. That the lesson, the fourth lesson. The fifth lesson is by obliterating bad practices. One is by avoiding unstandardized infrastructure. So we adopted enterprise class infrastructure in many aspects, like in defining the standard for access point that came up with the wireless controller. We also lay over more than 6 kilometer fiber optic and around 30 kilometers new network cable, new data center, and so on and so forth. And we minimize workaround to avoid technical debt. And new practice we adopted at the time is by serving the users as kings. It's very important, because since that time until now, for example, my internet connection and student internet connection is same. It's equal in every corner of the campus. It's equal. So this is very important. And 6 lessons. This is something we discussed at the time, how to make a leap, a giant leap. Because by relying on the internal resources, internal personnel would not suffice. So that's why at the time we agreed to recruit best talents from industry, from outside the campus, using industry-like recruitment processes that involve salary negotiation. This is very unusual in the context of university in Indonesia. And we did regular evaluation before contract renewal. And we also increased the capabilities of the existing staff, both by in-house training and also external training, even by sending them to partake or to participate in the overseas training. So this is the last lesson for the first case, mobilizing resources. So commitment from top management was very important at the time. So I myself and my team, I think some of them are joining us in this forum now. So we have to convince the top management, the rector, the vice rector, the foundation, because our big dream at the time demanded a lot of resources, and that will be impossible to be materialized without commitment from management, especially in in investing a lot of resources. So that's why what we did at the time is by inviting them, the top management, to change the mindset, the mindset about information technology investment. So I said to them at the time, that we should change our mindset from seeing the IT investment as operational expenditure to capital expenditure. This is investment for a long time, for long term, not only for a short time. It's very important. And another thing that I consider very important is building trust from all the stakeholders. So we can do it by providing proof, by meeting the promises we have given to them, and also in many cases or in some cases all were going smoothly. So that's why we have to be transparent and we explain to them the problem we face. So that's something that is very important to gain trust from the stakeholders. So that's the comparisons between the quality of our IT ecosystem before digital transformation and after the digital transformation. So now we had modernized technologies, standardized infrastructure and services, reliable internet connection, integrated information system, flexible information system design, and more importantly, or at least equally important, is equal user experience. So this achievement, meaning that we end our headache, but none of the headache. The headache is still there, but at least now we can smile, still sweating something, still have some headache, but we can focus our energy, our resources. We can use our resources not for firefighting approach in solving the problem, but by building new services on top of the installed base we have already in place. That's the first case. And I think I still have 10 minutes. Sumathi? Yeah.
You have another 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay. Thank you very much. So this is the new services we developed at the time, but at the first part, I gave you a list of lessons or approaches that use deductive thinking, started from problem. But this one is inductive thinking approach. So we start from the install base. What already we have in place, and we think what can be done on top of that. This is deductive thinking. So we developed new services at the time, like UII print, it's a cloud-based printing services, print on the go. I can do printing from everywhere, even by using my mobile phone, for example. UII dial, this is UII services. And we joined EduRoam. This is a global mobility services, which is now available in more than 100 territories or countries worldwide. So our colleague, our friend were also willing to share their experience to a broader audience by establishing what they call UI Academy. This is an open forum for sharing lessons. And now we have a new integrated information system, but not the complete one. So that's why, so other new services is still in the making, like a growing information system. So the family members of UI Gateway is still, still in the making. So we have also, we develop also more flexible platform. And now we have like ammunition to more confidently joining research and education network, both locally in Yogyakarta or nationally in Indonesia. That's the first case. The second case is the response to the COVID-19 pandemics. So this is the situation. The pandemic has forced us to shift our business processes from face-to-face learning into online learning. We also have no other option other than working from home. We created online services, and also we designed other business processes that can be done online with the help of information technology. So in this situation, reliable IT ecosystem is no longer an option. It is indeed the only option. So that's why we have no other choice other than strengthening the IT ecosystem we have. So what the lessons we got from this situation? One is making a bold decision when needed. At the time is not, the time was not on our side. So the pandemic changed our daily life abruptly, significantly, and that's why we have to learn quickly, because we have no situation on the past that we experienced physically, personally. Yeah, that's why no one is ready. So this is important. That's why we need to be there to make a bold decision. But we have to have what I call it a calculated risk. So this is something that we can relate to bounded rationality. So we can make decision based on the limited information that we have, but we have to do it quickly by judgmental decision, not hard database decision. Something that not always easy to convince others, because many will question our decision, and many perhaps are not pleased with the decision we take. So making a bold decision is very important when needed. And the next lesson is still important. It's very important. So I repeat this, but in different contexts. Invite all actors joining on board, but in an orchestrated way. So we need a collective action here. And we have to be aware of possible denialism, because, for example, in our context, the disparities between IT skills, IT capabilities is very huge, and we have to pay attention to all of that. So that's why, so we need to invite all the actors to join on board. By doing what? What we can do, one of them is by cultivating and developing digital culture. So we have to invite them to learn the skill, to get used with the new approach, and so on and so forth. It's very important, because the student cannot wait any longer. So we have to respond the situation very quickly. The last lesson, lesson number 10, is by creating room for tolerance. I think it's very important. And without having this understanding, in many cases, our energy is leaking. We have an energy leakage in many situations, because we have to argue with one group, in one faculty, with another faculty, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have to agree that we need to create room for tolerance. Accept imperfection, because in this situation, the pandemic situation, effectiveness and continuity is more important than perfection and quality. And in this situation, all of us is in the stage of a sharpening of a learning curve, because until several weeks or several months after the March 2020, we have no undeniable proof that our choice was the best one. So that's why. So accepting imperfection is very important. Equally important is by tolerating variety of approaches and quality. Some of our colleagues just use, for example, WhatsApp group for online learning. Some are using Facebook streaming services, YouTube services, Google Classroom, and so on and so forth. So I think we have to tolerate variety of approaches. But gradually, we need to pay our attention back to academic quality, because the reason for continuity is no longer valid. So now we have to have like a new state, new equilibrium, that we have to deal with the situation with the possible best we can do, the possible best that we can do. That means we have to pay more attention back to academic quality. That's the 10th lesson I share with you. The short time does not allow us to discuss it further, but this is the summary. The takeaways: 10 lessons, confront brutal facts, involve all stakeholders, orchestrate great ideas, formulate strategies, obliterate bad practices, recruit best talents, and mobilize resources. This has been based on our first case. And the second part, make a bold decision when needed, invite all actors joining on board, and create room for tolerance, is a lesson that we can learn from initiative that we have done is responding the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's all I have, and I will return to Sumathi. Please, Sumathi.
Yes, thank you, Prof. And that was amazing. We really need all this information at this moment. So we come to the end of presentation, and it was on time, Prof. Okay. We'd like to thank Prof. Fathul Wahid for his engaging and informative presentation. Okay, so for the audience, we have question from Noel from Philippines, University in the Philippines. She's asking, Noel is asking, to what extent are you engaging your stakeholders in your universities for the projects? To what extent do you engage the stakeholders?
Yeah. Okay. This is from Noel Estella. Okay. So I answer it directly, Sumathi?
Yes, you answer directly, yes.
So many thanks for the question that keep our mind working. So the level of engagement, as I will say honestly, vary from one actor to another. For example, top management at the time had the highest engagement because they have their problem. They have to provide better services to all the stakeholders in our university. But we also found some people in different groups that were less engaged. But in this situation, what we can do is by making the initiative as official decision made by the top management, not by the CIO. That decision will bind all the stakeholders. So they have to comply with that either by a smile or by reluctance, because we already bind it with formal, legitimate decision made by the top management. Yes, but in short, the engagement vary from one actor to another. I think that's my answer, Sumathi.
No, Noel, I hope it answers your question here. And give, yes, stakeholder, yes. So there's another question from Rido. See, yes?
I missed one point here. It's about curriculum.
Yes, Prof, there's two more questions here.
Okay.
There's two more questions here.
Okay.
Sorry, Prof. I think I'm on the speaker. Yes, Prof, you can hear me? Okay. Prof, there's the question from Noel. I hope this question is fine. It answers your question. Okay, Rido, right, Rido, he has asked question about stakeholder. How do you cope with some obstacle which possibly come from stakeholders who feel not ready with the upcoming changes? So he meant by not ready is that a factor that might stem from something unavoidable. For example, problem with digital literacy. So, Prof, you want to answer?
Yep, that happens in every context, I think. So, because the disparity of IT literacy in some cases are very huge, and we have a clear reason for that to explain it. For example, with all due respect, the seniors, for example. When they apply for this position, for example, as lecturer, at that time, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it had nothing to do with computers, with internet, with IT literacy. But now they have to learn for the youngsters, for example, for the from the younger faculty member, for example. This is not a big obstacle, but for them, they face a very huge barriers to entry.
Correct.
What we can do, that's the answer. What we can do, one is by giving a room for tolerate, that's one thing. And the second one is by providing assistance.
Assistance, yes.
Assistance, yeah. Like conducting a series of training, or even in some context, I found that the senior faculty member is helped by junior faculty members in a team teacher. So that can solve the problem. But if we insist that those who are lacking of IT literacy should have a similar level with us, I think that's not a wise option. So we need to create some room for tolerance. I think that could be a Japanese approach or Indonesian approach, because I understood that in some situation, so the policy is not negotiable. But this is what we did in our context, by managing our expectation and by creating some room for tolerance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I hope it answers your question, Rido. Rido, I hope you it's fine. Okay, thank you, Rido. Right. Okay, Prof, thanks for that question. Now another question from Ahmad Arif. In its implementation, how do the universities respond or help students who are not ready to study online because they have no previous experience?
There is always first time for everything.
Yes.
So what we can do is by speeding up our capability in responding the current situation, because the argument is also valid for others. I have no experience, but I'm willing to adjust myself, to sharpen our learning curve, to master new skill, and so on and so forth, to harvest the best, the possibilities that we can get from using information technology. That's the normative approach, but we can also use more practical approach here. For example, by providing a comprehensive manuals that can be accessed by students, by setting up a series of training that can be participated by students, and so on and so forth. But that could be initiative in both parties. We did our part, and they do their part. Without that, it's almost impossible. Complaining is not solving the problem. So that's why we have to adjust ourselves to harvest, to get the most possible from the use of information technology.
All right. Okay. So thank you, Prof. Let's see. Arif, I hope it answers your question. Let's take another question from Noel. Noel, as mentioned, not all students have resources such as laptop and computers and internet connection. So the Department of Education use modular system by providing modules to be answered by students and submit it after a week. How do you handle a situation like this, especially the teaching and learning is sometimes questionable? Yes, Prof, I also would like to know about that further, about measurement of the learning outcomes in different variable approaches in this pandemic period. How does this ecosystem support that variation? How do we measure end of the day?
Okay, I think that would call it usual situation in many developing countries, like Indonesia, for example. If you see Indonesia, for example, from western part to the eastern part, it's very huge. It's just like from London to Istanbul, and the what call it, the level of development again have a huge disparity. So that's why we have put all this in our radar. So that's why using only one approach will be not wise. So that's why we have to create some tolerance for variety. I think that the example given by Noel Estrella, I think that's a good example, because we cannot force the student who are unlucky with low financial capability, and has no laptop, for example, no resources. So that's why we have to find new approach. So being fair is not always the same. So that's why this is very important to create some tolerance, and again, to avoid the paranoid approach, because sometimes we always question the integrity, the honesty. So we have to put trust to the students, because again, in the current situation, perfection is our enemy.
Yes.
So, effectiveness, continuity should be put on the first priority, because that in an uneven distribution of information infrastructure, for example. That could be inspiration for all of us.
Yes.
Even, for example, in my case, if I teach my class, I normally had like a small questionnaire, short questionnaire, to see the quality of internet connection at the time. And I would give like a tolerance for those who have not a good internet connection, to put off the video connection, for example, or even for a quiz. So I give them 1 day, 24 hours to work with that and to submit it. Not immediately in the what call it in 1 hour or half an hour and so on. So that's one way to create room for tolerance.
All right. Okay. Noel, I hope this answers your question. Okay, Prof, I would like to ask you a question on the clarity on the future-proof design that we were talking about just now. When we want to implement this ecosystem where we are supporting the student, right? So what are the considerations that we should have for a future-proof design in the IT ecosystem? What are the considerations? Like we put it into perspective, like we don't talk about speed of the network. Like for example, by different country got different support, right? Like 4G and so on. So how do you do that future-proof design?
I cannot hear the last sentence, Sumathi.
Oh, I said like like if we say speed of network, we put a list of resources that support this ecosystem. Then for future like situations such as this where learning is still have to be carried on, exams and so on have to be carried on. So the future-proof design now changes a little bit, right? Because it changes a little because this pandemic has taught us a lot of things in advance to that.
Okay, here in Universitas Islam Indonesia, we do believe that online learning will be a permanent part of our business process. So that's why we have to invest a lot to ensure that the new services that we are going to develop in the future will fit with our common vision. And now we also develop a new proposal to be submitted to the national authority to open up several study programs, 100% online.
Oh, I see.
That's
a good thing, right?
So, because we do believe that no one now know when the
pandemic is going to over.
Yes. So that's why we have, of course, we have to hope for the best, but we have to prepare for the worst.
Correct.
That's what we do now. So.
True, it's true. You're absolutely right. 100% online learning is the next thing where when everyone is prepared with the resources already, so why not, right? Correct. Okay. Is there any questions from the other people chat? I think we can take another question. Anyone else? Okay, Prof, would you want to talk about your experience in this period where what were the obstacles that you faced to do this kind of research? What were the obstacles? Like, was it from the stakeholders, or was it from the from the university itself, or was it from which area?
Yeah. So based on my experience, when managing university, what we manage is not infrastructure, it's not building, it's not IT services, but what we manage is human.
Yes, is what? Sorry, bro?
Human.
Oh, okay, human. Okay.
So
I see, okay.
we can manage them well, properly. So I think that will solve already half of the problem.
Oh, yes.
So that's why, so by inviting them to join on board, we keep our ear open to listen what they would like to do, their aspiration is very important.
So do you do like testing on changes, like the implementation on the ecosystem, that the new implementation, do you do like a test on them, like all these are working and so on? Well, do you do that?
Yeah, we choose to use a piecemeal approach. not big
Oh,
bang.
I see.
Piecemeal.
Okay.
So that's the what call it, unique situation. Now we are running on both systems. The legacy system that will expire in several years to come, and now we are running in parallel the new system. So just like riding a motorbike, and you change the driver, but without stopping the motorbike. So this because this is the only option we can choose, because we cannot stop our business process in a short time. So that's why we like a fading approach, like fading approach, a piecemeal approach. And every piece that we are going to add to the solution, we use several stages in developing it. For example, by involving them to provide like a requirement specification, and we also have like a joint application workshop several times.
Because it happened in such a short period, so it should have been a hard way to test it. Like, you know, end of the day, we measure them, right? So it's a very short duration to implement and do changes to ecosystem.
Yes, we have to be very creative, because as I said, that the time now is not on our side. So that's why I'll also be proactively. For example, let's say a small example, attendance system. Before the pandemic, we use like fingerprints.
I see.
I think it's very dangerous, because they have to have like a physical context. And now, and we developed the system, I think, in a very short time, online, and the system can detect the location of the people, the person, or they can claim the person.
I see.
Like a small example, because all will be brought online, and we have to make a quick decision, and again, some room for tolerance.
Sure. Yes, we don't look for perfection at this point of time. Yes. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Anyone else want to ask any question before we end the session? If no, then thank you so much, Prof. Fathul Wahid, for this engaging session. We all gained a lot of knowledge from this presentation, right? Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, okay, thank you for your participation as well in the session, right? So I'll pass it back to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone, and Sumathi.
Okay, yes, all right.